The scent of mint and clove oil clung to the air, a fragrance so familiar it felt stitched into my skin. I slipped the crisp white coat over my shoulders, the fabric cool against the silk of my blouse. From the corner of my office, the late morning sun slid across the framed diplomas, turning their gold seals into tiny beacons. 18 years, 18 relentless, breathless years, had brought me here. 3,000 patients who trusted me with their smiles. Yet the quiet buzz of my phone on the desk reminded me that no amount of polish could completely cover the cracks of the past. I glanced at the screen, Dad. The name stopped me like a sudden ache. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, not since the night he told me I was wasting my life chasing a vanity profession. My thumb hovered over the screen, my heartbeat rising with the steady hum of the dental drill 2 rooms away. I let it ring. Then a second buzz. A voicemail, followed almost instantly by a text. Your mother and I are in town. We need to talk. It's important. The words pulsed back at me, daring me to open the door to everything I'd built this life to escape. I set the phone down carefully, like it might shatter if I moved too fast. 18 years of work and 3,000 loyal patients, and suddenly the ghosts of my past were sitting in my waiting room. I can still taste the metallic bitterness of that night, the one that split my life into a before and after. I was 20, my acceptance letter to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry folded neatly in my bag like a secret I was almost too afraid to believe. The summer heat had turned our small Indiana farmhouse into a pressure cooker, cicadas buzzing so loud outside the open windows they might as well have been screaming for me. Dad sat at the kitchen table, his forearms resting on the scratched oak surface, a beer sweating in his grip. Mom stood near the stove, her hand pressed over her mouth as though she could hold the moment still. So, Dad said, his voice low but sharp. Dental school. Another 4 years of debt for, what? Cleaning teeth. I swallowed hard. Dentistry is more than cleanings, Dad. It's medicine. I'll be a doctor. His laugh was short, almost cruel. Doctor? No one in this family needs some fancy doctor of teeth. You should get a real job. Something that pays the bills without burying you in loans. Maybe marry someone stable. My fingers gripped the strap of my bag until my knuckles whitened. The letter inside felt heavier than paper, like a weight that could anchor me or drown me. I can pay back the loans. I've worked 2 jobs for this. You're chasing vanity, he snapped, slamming the beer down so hard the table rattled. It's a waste of time and money. You'll regret it when you're 30 and broke. The words stung like acid. Behind him, Mom's eyes shone with something I couldn't name: fear, regret, or the memory of her own unchosen sacrifices. She slipped a small velvet pouch from her apron pocket and held it toward me. Samantha, she whispered, your grandmother wanted you to have this. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside lay a delicate silver pendant, a tiny tooth charm gleaming in the dull light. Grandma Hayes had been a dental hygienist back when women weren't supposed to work at all. She believed in you, Mom said softly. I closed my hand around the charm, feeling its cool edges bite into my palm. That bite steadied me. I'm going, I said finally, my voice stronger than I felt. Whether you believe in me or not. Dad looked away, jaw tight, and the silence that followed was heavier than any shouted argument. That night I packed the rest of my life into a single suitcase. With the pendant around my neck, I stepped into the humid dark, the sound of the cicadas fading behind me like a curtain falling on childhood. The first months in Ann Arbor blurred into a sleepless rhythm of lectures, late-night labs, and coffee that tasted like burned ambition. I rented a basement studio with pipes that clanged whenever the upstairs tenants flushed. It smelled faintly of mildew and hope. Every morning, I fastened Grandma's tooth pendant around my neck like armor, the silver warm against my skin after a few minutes, as if her faith had its own quiet pulse. Dental school was brutal. There were days I left the simulation lab with my back screaming and my fingertips raw from carving plastic teeth until midnight. More than once, I caught my reflection in the darkened clinic windows, eyes ringed with fatigue, lips chapped, and wondered if Dad's voice was right, if I was chasing vanity while the world marched on without me. But then came Dr. Elaine Foster, a professor with iron-gray hair and a laugh that could cut through despair. On a rainy Tuesday, she stopped behind my chair as I worked on a particularly tricky crown prep. "Good margins," she said, peering through her magnifiers. "Your touch is steady. Don't doubt it." The praise landed like a life raft. From that day, she became my mentor and, in many ways, the mother I needed. She pushed me when I wanted to quit, slipped me articles about women running their own practices, and once left a sticky note on my locker that read, "The world needs more hands like yours." For years later, when I crossed the stage in my cap and gown, the pendant glinting beneath my robes, I caught sight of Mom in the crowd, her eyes wet, her smile trembling. Dad didn't come. It hurt, but by then the ache had dulled into a quiet certainty. I could build my own life, with or without his blessing. Residency in Chicago sharpened my skills and my resolve. I worked 12-hour days, stitched torn gums, soothed terrified children, and learned the business side of dentistry from a senior partner who liked my grit. When he retired, he offered me a buy-in I could barely afford. I signed anyway, taking on a mountain of debt and a tiny office with yellowing wallpaper and a single flickering sign that read Hayes Dental Care. That first year was a blur of hustling, handing out flyers at farmers markets, hosting free dental checkups at elementary schools, remembering every patient's name and birthday. Slowly, people came back, not just for the dentistry, but for the way I remembered their kids' soccer scores, or the fact that Mrs. Lanning hated grape-flavored fluoride. The numbers grew: 100 patients, then 500, then 1,000. I stopped keeping count at some point, until my receptionist tallied them for a holiday card list and said, awestruck, "Samantha, we're over 3,000. I smiled, running my fingers over the cool silver pendant. Dad still hadn't called, and I still hadn't told anyone in my family what I'd built. My updates to Mom were deliberately vague. Work is busy. Things are good. Because part of me wanted the unveiling to happen on my terms, when the practice and I were unshakable. When the woman Dad once dismissed as a dreamer had become the doctor 3,000 people trusted with their smiles. The chime of the front doorbell echoed through the reception area, bright and clear above the soft jazz humming from the ceiling speakers. I looked up from the chart I was reviewing and froze.
"Dad."
Mom trailed a few steps behind him, clutching her handbag like a lifeline. He hadn't aged kindly, deep creases around his mouth, shoulders slumped as though the years had grown heavier. For a heartbeat, the world tilted, and the scent of mint polish and sterilizer mingled with a flood of memories. The farmhouse kitchen, the slam of a beer bottle, the sting of his words. "Samantha," Mom said softly, we wanted to see you." I stepped from behind the counter, smoothing the hem of my navy dress. My voice found a steadiness my 20-year-old self could never have mustered. "You found me." Dad's eyes darted across the space, white walls bright with framed photographs of smiling patients, the row of treatment rooms with their gleaming chairs, the polished walnut desk bearing my name in discreet brass letters, Dr. Samantha Hayes, DDS. "This is your office?" he asked, the words half disbelief, half something else I couldn't yet name. "It is," I said. "Welcome to Hayes Dental Care." He turned slowly, taking in the details, the original watercolor of Lake Michigan that hung behind the reception desk, the fresh lilies on the counter, their scent a gentle sweetness against the sharp tang of disinfectant, the gallery of photos from community events, kids clutching balloon animals at our free checkup fairs, seniors laughing at our annual Smile Day. Mom touched the edge of a framed newspaper clipping. Local dentist reaches 3,000 loyal patients after 18 years. 3,000? She whispered, glancing back at me. "You built this." "I did," I said simply. Dad's mouth tightened. 18 years, he murmured, as if the number might rearrange itself if he said it slowly enough. 3,000 patients, he shook his head. I never imagined that I'd make it. My voice was gentle, but the question hung between us like a dare. He looked down, the weight of old words heavy in the silence. "I didn't understand," he said at last. I thought you were chasing something frivolous. I was wrong. Mom's eyes glistened, her hand trembling as she reached for mine. We should have been there. I should have been there. I led them deeper into the practice, past the sterilization bay and the private consult room where the pendant beneath my blouse seemed to hum with its own quiet pride. We stopped in my office, a calm space of soft gray walls and bookshelves lined with dental journals and patient thank you notes. Dad ran a hand over the smooth walnut edge of my desk. You own all this? Every square foot, I said. And I'm debt-free. He exhaled, the sound part sigh, part confession. I was so afraid you'd end up struggling, that you'd resent me for not helping. I struggled, I admitted, but it was my struggle to own, and it built this. For a long moment he said nothing, the quiet broken only by the distant hiss of the autoclave. Finally, he looked at me, eyes softer than I remembered. You proved me wrong, Sam. I'm proud of you. The words landed like sunlight breaking through a long winter. I felt the pendant warm against my chest, the memory of Grandma's faith alive in the silver. 18 years. 3,000 smiles. And finally, the one I had waited for. I settled into the leather chair behind my desk, the pendant cool against my skin, and let the silence stretch until even the soft whir of the air conditioner seemed loud. Dad shifted uneasily in the chair opposite me. Mom sat with her handbag clasped tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on the silver frame of a patient's thank you photo. So, I said finally, folding my hands. You said you needed to talk. Dad cleared his throat. Your mother, she's worried about money. My pension took a hit. We're not where we thought we'd be. Mom flinched at the admission, her shoulders curling inward. For a moment, the old ache in my chest flared. The 20-year-old who left with a single suitcase wanted to slam the door, to let the hurt speak for me. But the woman I had become, the one who built a practice 3,000 patients strong, had learned a different kind of strength. I can help, I said slowly. But there are conditions. Dad's brow furrowed. Conditions? Yes. I kept my tone gentle but firm. First, you stop calling dentistry a vanity. You recognize it as a profession, my profession, that's saved our family today. He lowered his gaze. You have my word. Second, I continued, turning to Mom, you go back to your art classes. The ones you gave up when Dad said they weren't practical. I'll pay the tuition if you'll commit. Her eyes filled, a tentative light breaking through the years of quiet resignation. I'd love that. And third, I said, looking at them both, you start showing up for me, not just when you need something, but when there's joy to share. Holidays, birthdays, even a random Tuesday. I want family, not ghosts. The room went still. Dad swallowed hard. You're right. We should have been here all along. I'll do better. We'll do better. I leaned back, letting the weight of their promises settle. Then I'll help with the finances, on my terms. We'll set up a plan, something steady, not a quick patch. This isn't about guilt or payback. It's about building something stronger than what we had. Mom reached across the desk, her fingers warm over mine. Samantha, you've built more than a practice. You've built a life worth admiring. We're lucky you're still willing to let us in. Dad nodded, his voice rough. I don't deserve your grace, but thank you. The pendant at my throat seemed to thrum with approval. Grandma had always believed in the healing power of a smile, not just for patients, but for the wounds families carry. I smiled then, not out of triumph, but from the quiet relief of reclaiming what once felt lost. The first week after the meeting felt surreal. Dad came in to observe the clinic, helping with minor office tasks he'd never imagined himself doing. Mom signed up for evening painting classes at the community center, her laughter spilling into our apartment each time she returned, paint-streaked and glowing. I watched them from the corner of my office one morning, clipboard in hand, patients filing in and out, and felt a quiet pride settle over me. It wasn't just about the numbers, over 3,000 loyal patients, 18 years of hard work. It was about what I had built for myself and, now, the space I could share with those I loved. Every time I caught a reflection in the polished chrome of a dental chair, or the glass of the reception door, I saw not just the dentist they had doubted, but the woman who had carried every disappointment, every whispered doubt, and shaped it into resilience. The pendant, warm against my chest, was a constant reminder of that journey, Grandma Hay's belief, my mother's quiet courage, and the fire I had found within myself. It had guided me through nights when I questioned my worth, when exhaustion threatened to undo me, and now it pulsed gently with the rhythm of a life claimed and conquered. One afternoon, as the sun streaked the office with golden light, Dad approached with a small envelope. Inside, a note read, "We're proud of you, and we'll keep trying to deserve your faith." I smiled, fingers brushing the silver charm. The words didn't erase the years of tension or the pain, but they were enough to acknowledge growth and to remind me that forgiveness was not about erasing the past, but understanding it and moving forward. As Mom returned from class, her easel tucked under her arm, and Dad helped a young patient with a nervous smile, I realized that life had finally found balance. I had fought for my dream, for my independence, and in doing so, I had carved space for others to heal and grow alongside me. And as I stepped into the reception, greeting patients with warmth and precision, I whispered to myself, almost as a vow, "I built this. I earned this. And no one can ever take it from me, not the past, not the doubts, not even the silence of those who once didn't believe." The pendant gleamed faintly in the sunlight, and for the first time in 18 years, I felt the full weight and freedom of all I had accomplished.